Thanks, Jolene. All right, good afternoon. My name is Keith Jackson. I'm really excited to be here in Utah. I actually live in Gilbert, Arizona, but I cover the Southwest for iTech. A lot of therapists probably haven't heard of us because for the first 25 years, we sold through resellers. And just recently, a few years back, we got some venture capital funding to change our business model from business to business to business directly to the user. And it's been the best change ever. I've been with the company 19 years, and we've made some really great advancements to helping, as the topic says, maintain momentum for these AAC users, both pediatric all the way to adults. And I have a couple guests joining us online, Rochelle, I'll get to in just a minute, and Kia. Rochelle is our success coach, one of our success coaches. One of the unique things we offer is a lifetime success coach support behind each of our devices. We won't be going into a lot of the devices, but talking and asking questions. This is interactive. What are some of the challenges you guys are seeing in the field with your AAC users to maintain that momentum? And as a company, we brought on Kia. She's our clinical education specialist. I'll introduce her in a minute. She is a speech therapist. She's been with peds all the way to adults, from schools to skilled nursing facilities to working with the VA. So she's a great resource, and you have access to both of them via email or calling, which is a great way to improve user adoption and effectiveness. All right, so that's just real quick about me. I've been with iTech 19 years. That's my family, actually at Silver Lake up the road. It's one of our favorite hikes. So yeah, we have 3 boys and a girl, and I absolutely love what I do. I work with a lot of great speech therapists, OTs, PTs. I work a lot with the Salt Lake City VA. They keep me busy here, as well as the school districts. Love bringing devices in, and we do have loaners. A lot of times Utah Medicaid requires a 90-day trial, and our funding team works with you guys to help make sure that process is as painless as possible. I was just up at Utah School for Deaf and Blind, helping set up Sammy, who has CVI. And today I want to really go over how to address access methods as well. What's going to be the best access method? Direct select, switch scanning, eye gaze, perhaps head tracking, and we can help with any of those access methods on our devices. So a little bit about us. Our founder, Rob Chappell, started the company in 1996. He's a BYU graduate, for any of you BYU fans. And he's a great guy. He actually started the company because he injured his arms from typing too much in the early 90s as an electrical engineer, and invented the first Windows-based eye tracking technology. That's one of the first devices. You can see the IR lights are basically taped onto the side of the screen, and the camera's resting on the keyboard. We've made a little bit of progress since then. And we recently won some awards. So how many of you have seen someone struggle with a student calibrating on a device? Okay, so we're working on the next gen of being able to advance and calibrate them dynamically as they use the device, so you never have to recalibrate the system using AI and machine learning. We won a couple awards for that recently. And we really take a team effort. How many speech therapists are here? Raise your hands. Okay, great. How many OTs? Great. PTs? Okay, we're lacking PTs, but we love working with all the disciplines. We take a multidisciplinary approach as we work together, because every kiddo or every student's different. Back in 2020, we really pivoted from B2C or B2B to B2C, and that's when we launched our Ion Elite, which is our 14-inch with eye gaze built in. And then we recently launched the Ion Air that also has eye gaze built in. It's Android-based, half the weight, twice the battery life, which is great. And then we have the Ion Go for more of your direct select users with the Avaz software. And one of the advantages we offer, I'll introduce Rochelle here in just a second, is our lifetime success coach support. So how many times do you customize, raise your hands, do you customize a user's device? The language, adding new buttons, customizing it to them. Because are all of them jazz fans? No. Some of them want specific things, right? So we can remote into any of our 3 devices through TeamViewer. There's a button on the desktop on all the devices. And we really take a full approach to the patient journey. So if they're maybe an accident, they go from the hospital, discharged, and then are at home, we really take a team approach to making sure that they have what they need every step of the way. And I just did this visual. It's kind of hard to see. Basically, those circles around Whitney there, she's one of our Ion Go users, are people that interact with her on a daily basis. Special educators, teachers, parents, caregivers. She signs, but a lot of the staff don't know how to sign. Her dad doesn't know how to sign. We'll show a little video of how she uses the Ion Go. So with that, I will introduce Rochelle. Rochelle, are you still there?
Hi, yes, I'm here, Keith.
Great. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at iTech, and where did you go, what your background is, and then I'll have you log into my device.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, before I worked for iTech, I worked in doing speech therapy in the home health industry. And I did actually see a lot of people use their device only when I was there. And so really the Success Coach program, it was implemented through the data that shows that there is a very high device abandonment rate in this industry. And so that is our goal, is to completely obliterate that. So we want to be able to help anybody who has our device. All those circles that we saw on the outside, the periphery, we work with not only the end user, but all of those people who work with the end user as well. So we work with customizing the device, we do tech support, we do anything to do with customization and training, making sure that people are comfortable with their devices, and the entire life of the device, people have access to us to ask us questions, ask us for help. And so that we can, customize that device as well as, the needs change with our end users.
Great, thanks. I'm going to give Rochelle our TeamViewer ID. Rochelle, it is 205-308-935. So the client just needs an internet connection. And how many times during the day do you guys, what are some of the biggest challenges you guys are seeing with your AAC users, whether it's in the school or when they go home? What are some of the biggest challenges? I want this to be interactive. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of
Keith, you have
parents.
a chat. Yeah. Battery's dead from the chat.
Oh, okay. Just a second. So what she said was the parents feel like they know what's going on or know how to use it, but they really maybe aren't as vested into the device. They kind of just send the device to school and don't use it at home. Is that kind of the gist? Okay. Anything else? Great point. Perfect. Great challenge to overcome. So I'm going to address that with Rochelle here. So Rochelle, could you go into my OnBright, our symbol-based communication software? This is our software team's in Tempe, Arizona. All of our hardware is designed in Tempe. Our whole team's there. And let's go ahead and have you pull up a 4-button Encore language software, and let's have you add like 4 more buttons. So here we've got 4 buttons. Sorry, it's kind of hard for you guys to see. And I'm going to have her add another row just to address your, hey, I want everything on one page. And this is for, an emerging communicator, right? So she just added 4 buttons, and let's go ahead and just shout out four phrases or words that you'd like for her to add. My turn, okay? We have more, all done, want, and not. Help. Bathroom. Last one. Stop. Stop. Yep. Okay, so she just added those. We use symbol sticks for our symbols. And just to kind of give you some context of the power of working as a team. You guys have a lot of students. We understand that, and we rolled this out a few years back, and we've seen great results in the schools that we work with. So thank you, Rochelle, for doing that. I'd like to introduce now, and they're not just for customizing the software. If you have a technical support issue, with our software, we can they can call and text through our Bright Connect app. It'll Bluetooth connect to iPhone or Android. And one of the cool things is it syncs their contacts for more of your teenage users. They love that feature. So you don't have to manually enter their contacts. But I'd like to introduce you to Kia. We're really fortunate to have her on the team. She brings a great clinical background to helping educate, support, and train all of our regional consultants across the country, and then support you as OTs, speech, and PTs. So Kia, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe share some of the experiences you've had working in the schools?
Sure. My name is Kia Canteen. I am a speech pathologist. I have worked in various settings, celebrating my 20th year this year, so I'm pretty proud of that. Prior to coming aboard with iTech, I was in a position at the Lavelle School for the Blind where I was really, truly immersed in the AAC world. And then having a little bit of background, well, a lot of background with medically complex and nursing homes, skilled centers, hospitals, acute care, and just looking at the transition, what I found is that the awareness and just the use of AAC is not as broadly used as it could be to benefit our outcomes. So what I have focused on here, and what I do appreciate that iTech does, is that we're looking to provide access for opportunities and options so that we have better outcomes and then overall quality of life. So my role here is to provide education where it's needed and to help promote and advocate for communication. I also help to support practitioners because I do fall back on a little bit of my experience in knowing that everyone, unless you have AAC users, are not as familiar. So definitely just kind of taking a little bit of the scary out. And also, I love the support. And so we're not by ourselves. And as Rochelle said, our goal is to prevent device abandonment in conjunction with bringing awareness for other lives that we could definitely impact and change. So looking at it from that provider aspect, having worked with families and users, having worked in the settings, I just want to bring some of that experience here to help maybe navigate this process and bring a lot more awareness into the field.
Thanks, Kia. Any questions for Rochelle or Kia? All right, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about access. How do you identify what's their best access? And how many of you have seen your clients use more than one access? Raise your hand. Okay, we're big proponents of that because a lot of times some of them just get tired and maybe they can't use their limbs as well, and so they need to go to eye gaze, or maybe they just need to do switch scanning with a consistent movement. So we're going to cover direct select, switch scanning, and eye gaze. Head tracking is another option. It's not for everybody, but for, I would say, a small fraction that I've seen it's effective, primarily for the older, more cognitively high-functioning users. So considerations, as you were looking at direct select, what are some of the challenges you guys are seeing with your AAC users, your direct select touch users? Okay, great. So how do you address that, overcome that? Anyone have an answer? Could a key guard help with that? Yeah, absolutely. How many buttons is that particular student accessing on his or her device? 60? Okay. So that's a lot. But we do have, I think, up to 40. The holes are pretty small. So if, again, what would be another option if she can smack? What would be another access option that she might want to consider? Scanning, right? So have you tried scanning with that particular student? Okay. So we'll go over scanning some different options. I'm a big fan of the head's pillow switch. Who has never seen a pillow switch in action before? Raise your hand. It's okay. Okay. So the pillow switch has a little pin, what do you call it? Yeah, pin. So you can actually pin it to their headrest on their chair, or maybe it's just below their hand, and it's very comfortable, or below on their foot. And I have a picture, and I'll show you an actual end user example who is a huge gamer. He's actually writing his own book. The guy is phenomenal. So again, access is huge. We tried eye gaze. He just wasn't, he had a lot of spasticity. He had a really hard time focusing, but it's still super high functioning. So identifying switch scanning was really helpful for him. So cognition, buttons per screen. So 60 buttons might be a little great for switch scanning, but identifying how to process, how they're processing those 60 buttons. What would be a good way to identify that is within our book system in our OnBright software, you could have 4, 18, 30, 40, and then go all the way to 60. The language system's the same, just less words, and then go through that progression. That would be my suggestion. So for example, in our symbol-based software, you go into the bookshelf, and we have, we did the Encore 4. We'll now open Encore 18, and now you have 18 buttons. If you go to 30, we use a color coding scheme so that motor planning component's always the same for muscle memory or retaining. The word go is always in green in that column. And so let's go to Encore 40, for example. And now you have a lot more buttons, but it's going to take a lot more processing, right? A lot more cognitive capability. So the word go is green in that third column. So as you're working with different students, we understand you don't want to have to learn, okay, this student's on 4 and now we're on 60. Where are all those words? So that's really important. Have you guys, how many have worked with CVI students? Probably the most challenging, right? What are some of the challenges you guys are seeing with CVI in terms of access? Symbol discrimination, so high contrast images are really important, right? Sammy's a CVI, high contrast. We basically have 4 buttons in the corners, and we set it to one eye tracking for him, because with CVI, the direct visual field is not very good. So having it more to the side is really helpful. Anything else with CVI? Probably the most underserved population as well. There's a lot of challenges, but I love that population. And then quick fires. So having quick fires is really important as well. So for example, in our Ion Air with the Avaz software, we can quickly go, and there's switch ports. On the Ion Elite, they're in the back here. There's 2 switch ports. You don't have to program them. They just automatically appear. And then here, let me crank up the volume.
Yes.
So we have a quick fire button on the right side. You could also have quick fires at the bottom for your direct select so they're not accidentally hitting.
Quick.
So.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
And you can change the rate at which the voice speaks. So it's pretty slow right now. And then one of my favorite things is to also see what motivates them. So what are some things that are working in the school for you guys that's motivating your AAC users? Is it games? Is it smart speakers like Alexa? I'll show you a couple things that I'm seeing really help. And just shout it out if you have any ideas. So I love doing Alexa. So a lot of these students have, parents or brothers or sisters who interact with Alexa, being able to allow them to
Alexa, tell me a joke.
have them interact with, listening to an
Alexa,
audiobook
resume audiobook.
or to music
Alexa, play classical music.
and getting some immediate response. You can do a lot of great things. One of my favorite things to do with my 4 kids at night is the name that tune with Alexa is really fun. And I wasn't a music buff, but I was surprised at how many songs I knew from the 80s. It was pretty cool. What other challenges are you seeing to keep them engaged at school or at home? Okay. Great point. So it's really important that you have good mounting, right? So we do mount to the wheelchair, so you can easily swing it away, do a seating adjustment, and swing it back. So that is really a great way because their position, if they recline in their chair, the device adjusts with them. Or rolling floor mount, so you can have it, easily positioned to help multiple students. So you're seeing that as a challenge. So that's a great point. We do have straps that connect to any of the corners of the device, top or side, and that just straps around their neck or along their shoulder so they can just lift it up. And this one has a 35-hour battery life because we have an additional battery pack on there. But if you take this off, it has a nice, that blue case with a handle. It's just over a pound and has a 12-hour battery life, which is great. And then, so yeah, those are just some things to consider as you're looking at direct select. Where to position those quick fires, I think, is a good takeaway. Maybe the left side's better than the bottom, or the right side, and vice versa. So I wanted you to meet Whitney. I'm not sure if this is going to play for people to see, but she actually lives down the street from me. She's just awesome. She just finished her high school senior year. And like I said, her dad does not speak, doesn't sign. So
and
the
then
device is
gets
really
frustrated
helpful.
and so to be able to have her express her thoughts to people that don't sign, it's huge for her. And relieves a lot of anxiety and helps her to feel like she's a part of the conversation.
We grow arm and leg, then dance.
So anyway, it gave her a lot of confidence, and especially with her dad, just kind of feeling like, hey, what should I do? Because he doesn't know how to sign. He kind of communicated through his wife all the time, which I'm sure could be really frustrating. Okay, let's talk about switch scanning. What are some of the challenges you guys are seeing with switch scanning? Okay, Bluetooth connection issues, great point. Positioning of the button, yep, great. So we help with that a lot, virtually or in person. If you guys have a student that you want to try a device with, UCAT does have a couple of our devices. We also have our own loan equipment program, so you can schedule a two-week all the way up to 3 months to try out the device. I think UCAT's only 30 days, but if you need a longer one for Utah Medicaid, we can work with you on that. So here's a few different switches that I just wanted to throw out there. Who here is a fan of the candy corn? Okay, why do you like the candy corn? Right. So it's just basically a swipe over, right? It could be a finger, it could be a hand, it could be a foot, any of those. I love the candy corn. It's really helpful. I had a lot of locked in patients where you put it by their head and they can just kind of turn their head, and it's really helpful. The pillow switch is in the top right. I'm a big fan. Easy. The cup switch is kind of nice for those who maybe don't want, they're making a lot of accidental clicks. You have to really have a just direct from the top press. So not for everyone, but just a good option. And Kent, you have tons of switches, right? Growing out your ears, right? So finger switches, yeah, yep. There's also even a blink switch that's kind of interesting, that basically just is muscle movement of the forehead if they're completely locked in, that I've tried with a couple patients. And then let's see. Yeah, the Bluetooth, the 2-switch. Bluetooth is not super consistent, is it? So definitely trying something that's wired is really helpful. So on our Android-based devices, the Ion Go and the Ion Air, the switches are on the back, on the side there. There's also 2 USB ports, so you can have USB mouse or anything like that. So, and then the Ion Elite, the switches are covered in the back there. I want to share with you, Aaron, I don't know if the video is going to work, but I'll just share a little bit of how he goes through it. Who here has never seen a switch scanning user control the desktop before? Okay, no, it's not very common. He does it like incredibly well. So he has a lot of involuntary movement from his cerebral palsy, and he, like I said, plays video games. He controls any app on the desktop. He's a big Facebook, Messenger video chatter. Extremely social, and he's looking for a sponsor for his gaming team. It's pretty cool. And he's currently illustrating and writing his own book. So I had a video, but it's, if you'd like, just shoot me an email, Keith or kjackson@itechds.com, and I'll send you a link to his video. But it basically scans row by row, column by column, and he just hits the switch, the pillow switch that's behind his head. And yeah, the letter K, and then Jackson, Jackson, at iTech is spelled EYETECH, and then D for digital, S for systems.com. But yeah, he's in Vegas, great guy. With switches, also, what are some other, if someone's just using a switch, what's another access method that might help them if they can't use their switch? Maybe the Bluetooth goes away. I mean, getting another switch might help, but have you guys seen students or clients that just struggle with the switch and you're like, what do I do? You can ask Kia, she probably knows. I've seen a couple things. Low tech is a good option just to have in your back pocket. A gaze board, a clear piece of plexiglass where you have your different things as a backup. Have you guys ever heard of Jason Becker? He invented the Becker board, which is an invisible board, where you basically have, and I witnessed it, I was in his house, phenomenal. He's like one of the world-renowned guitarist players for Van Halen or some really well-known group, and he was diagnosed with ALS, unfortunately. But his dad and him communicate with basically A through E, and there's basically 6 quadrants, and they communicate just like you and I talk. It's unbelievable. But the gaze board has, been created for that purpose, for fast, yes, no, spelling out things. He spelled out words super fast. So just another idea. Yep. Great idea. Yeah. So how would the user interact with a partner-assisted scanning? Would be, you know, blink to select, or stare right, stare left, and then you as the helper would initiate the switch, right? Is that how you would do it? Yeah. Great option. Yeah. So that Bluetooth switch that goes kaput, if they can't access another switch, you could be the one that helps with that in the meantime. All right, eye gaze. What are some of the challenges that you guys see with eye gaze users? There's quite a few. Positioning and what's is it too close? Is it too far? Is it they slide out to the side? What are, yeah. Uh-huh. I love it. I love it. So I'll give you a couple tips. So when you do have someone recline back, a lot of times you do need to see the entire pupil. So if you guys can see this, you can see my eyes. If there's any droop in the eyelid, either the bottom or the top, if the crosshair goes away, it means you know, it's not tracking the eyes. So we have good head motion forward and back, but some users, it's very sensitive, right? Where you have to be positioned ideally. So in our software, it does give a distance indicator in the top right corner, and then you can easily, I'll just do a quick calibration, but positioning it so that they're ergonomically comfortable. You always want it to be in, I'm just looking at the targets till they disappear. You always want it to be kind of the same height as the top of their head. You don't want them ever looking too far down, because then it puts undue pressure on their neck. Although sometimes that's the best option if they're in a wheelchair and they want to see in front of them. So, but be sensitive to that. You know, work with your OTs to really identify. Again, take a multidisciplinary approach to make sure their back, their neck, everything is ergonomically solid. So great point. And then just look at their eyes. If there's, sometimes you'll see a nystagmus or one eye that kind of just wanders, kind of have them, you can just do kind of the follow my finger, and you'll sometimes see where one eye just kind of jumps. So you can just set it in the software to one eye only. That's really helpful too. Let's see. So single or dual eye tracking, you can set dwell, blink, or switch to click. Who here, what issues do you see with dwell? Fatigue? Why? Correct. It's, they have the eyes that kind of wander sometimes. And what I would suggest is in our software, we have like a little balloon pop to identify how many buttons per screen they can access. And it's also a good way to identify how long of a dwell you need. So default's 1 to 1.5 seconds. The fastest I've seen is like 0.5, where they're pausing all the time. But that's where, you know, taking an initial step going into, let's see. Going into the therapy and then the balloon pop, you can see how it kind of fills from the corners. And then once it fills gray, it will click. You can then just run them through, hey, how many buttons per screen can they identify? And you'll see a little gaze dot that follows their gaze. You can see if that's jumping or not. that will be an indication to perhaps decrease the dwell time to maybe something a little bit shorter, so that, because what happens is if they leave that button just a split second before that 1 second, it resets, right? And you can adjust that, but it's frustrating and fatiguing. And that's where sometimes the blink click is actually better. And the blink click is set to, so here you can see I've accessed 24 buttons per screen quickly and easily. But if they struggle with that last button, you would go a step back and go to maybe 16 or 12 or 8 or so on. But the blink click, you can set to 0.2, 0.3 seconds. So it's a deliberate third of a second blink. So it won't accidentally click on a natural blink. And that's really helpful for especially students or clients who do a lot of web browsing or want to access the curriculum online. So I'm just going to go, I wish you could see this on the screen, but you can switch between dwell and blink, the user can. I'm going to go to blink, and I'm going to look at close, and I'm just going to do a deliberate blink, and I'll kind of turn to the side so you can see, I'm just doing an ad to Candy Crush. 10 seconds left. Gotta love Microsoft. Not. All right. I'm gonna close that, start my card game, and go to my deck of cards. We'll move the 7 over, the Jack over, the 10 over, and I'm just clicking on it with a blink, and then it moves it to the appropriate spot. So it's pretty quick. I can go to my web browser, go to my YouTube videos, and what's cool is I just blink on it to play.
Stands for Justin Thomas with his third.
And then I just blink to unpause. I can video chat on WhatsApp. Facebook video chat's really helpful. But blink is a great option for those who cognitively can do that. It's not for everyone, but I would recommend trying it to see if it's more effective for them. And again, they can switch back and forth. And then eye gaze with a switch. That's basically the switches that you saw, candy corn or the pillow switch. They navigate with their eyes and then click with the switch. So where did my bag go? Oh, here it is. So here I've got one with Velcro just on the bottom, so it won't slide off. And I'm just going to put this in one of the switches. And let's go ahead. Could you be my test subject? We're going to go just grab a seat. Also make sure to not have them in a chair on wheels. I've seen a lot of times they're like, it's just not working, and they're kind of moving the chair and the wheels. So I'm just going to go to bright symbol. I'll kind of hold this up a little bit. Sorry, this is not good ergonomics, but we're going to have her in the software. You can change the access method to eye gaze with a switch. So what's nice is it eliminates the frustration of accidentally clicking, because it's going to still do the dwell animation. So you're training them on how to use dwell too, but she's going to have to initiate with a switch. So let's go ahead and go to the balloon pop and then hit the switch. And just hit it as soon as it starts highlighting. Yep. And she's using my calibration. Sorry, so for her, without a calibration, she's able to access, I would say, 1 back, which is, yeah, like 12. So now let's go ahead. One other thing that I would recommend when you go into desktop control is you can do different activities to get them started, so they're maybe to eliminate that frustration factor. So we're going to go ahead and have her play just like a little interactive targeting. No switches needed this time. Oops. No. And here it's just going to interact with her as she looks. It also gives you some visual feedback on kind of how the camera is responding to her eyes without going through that whole calibration process. So give her a hand, guys. How many of you guys have curriculum online? Lots, right? So we would love your feedback on what curriculum you'd like to make more eye gaze friendly. Because our software team, we're the only company in the U.S. that makes the hardware, the eye gaze, and the communication software and the desktop control software all in the U.S. So your feedback goes directly to our software team to incorporate into next versions, which are free updates for the life of the device. Let's see. Cognition can definitely play a role. Buttons per screen we talked about. Visual bias. So if you're having a client who maybe just struggles with vertical or horizontal saccades or eye movements, I would suggest going into our symbol-based software and adding a bias for that, basically a blank zone. So for example, in this 12-button grid book, we're going to go ahead and edit this, and we're just going to add a couple rows because maybe they have a hard time seeing that bottom section. So now all the buttons are in the top zone if they have maybe a hard time vertically or horizontally. So now you have a kind of a blank zone. Or you could move the targets around so you have blank spaces in between targets. So we'll quickly move these around so that there's a blank space between each target. So there's you don't have accidental clicks. So now you have a little bit of blank space for them to save. There we go. You have some blank space in between targets, so you don't get accidental selection of targets as much. And quick fire is also super important, so they can quickly communicate their commonly used phrases. So this is one of my favorite stories. I met Rick a year and a half ago. He was in a skilled nursing facility. He had been there for about 3 months. COVID was, alive and flourishing, so his family couldn't come visit him. We got him set up. He loves the blink click. He controls his TV, his light, and his fan. His biggest challenge when he was at this facility was, he said, during the day I would get hot, and at night I would get cold. And so, caregivers and nurses couldn't be there 24/7. So he said one time felt so warm, he felt like he was going to die, and he had no ability to do anything about it. The nurse call button was like kind of slid down, so he couldn't call the nurse, and his wife was in tears. It was just really cool to see him interact, and I'll send you a link to this as well. And yeah, he could video chat with his family. Is it going to work, this one? No. This is another cool story. Gal had an accident, and she's able to video chat through Alexa show right next to her bed with her 4 boys every day. Really, really neat gal, Stephanie. So we do have a funding team. Just remind you guys, if you do have any clients who need support, all of our documents are online. We also have fillable PDFs for those that want to just print and fill it out and send it back. But we're really about working as a team to improve the outcomes for these patients so they can stay connected. and as well as with your students, improve their capability, both at home and at school, like you talked about. When they go home, sometimes they never even pick up the device, right? So that's a big challenge. Questions, comments, other students you're working with where you're like, hey, I'm having this challenge. We can talk about it as a group to keep momentum for these AAC users. We've got 10 minutes, but we can end early. It's totally fine. Kia, anything else? If she's still there? I think she left. I think she had something else she needed to get to. Yeah. Huh? Absolutely. Yep. Teachers, parents, caregivers, a friend, family friend who's now going to come in, twice a week and help out. They just want a quick debrief. There's a link to our Calendly app that we'll share, and they can just go on their phone or on the device. I think it's on this one. There's usually a button right here. This is an older device that to support, and then you can schedule a 15, 30, 60, or 90-minute session with our success coach team. And then I have some cards. You're welcome to take one and call or text me anytime if you have questions. Oh, online. Yeah, sorry. Could you read that for me? What if the student stems? Oh, got it. Multiple times, then it sounds like you probably want to try a different switch. What type of switch are you currently using? I'm just curious if the person that sent that over is hearing me. Please chime in. Yeah, it does. Yeah, so on the setting, if you go in, it's called, I'll just show you real quick. And the user has access to changing that as well if you want. So you just go into the settings at the top left, go into settings, eye tracker settings, and then continuous delay or dwell delay. You can change that. Okay. Okay, iPad TD Snap, and what switch are you using? Or is it just touch? Got it. So I think there's a setting in there where you can, I think, eliminate that multiple redundancy. I'm not a expert of TD Snap. Yeah, repeat delay, yeah. That's what I would recommend. So you should be able to go into the settings and ask TD Snap support where that is. Great question. I know that's a low cost, inexpensive app you can put on your iPad, but it's a good one. Okay. Well, I hope sharing a few examples, talking about, the different access methods, having multiple redundancies. So if switch is not working, the Bluetooth connection goes kaput, you have a backup. If an eye gaze user is getting fatigued, later in the day and they're just like, I'm just tired, they can go to a switch. And just gives you some ideas. But feel free to leverage me as much as you want. I'm happy to come out and bring a device and trial, and then leave one for you guys to play around with as well. You're welcome.